Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of In Lay Terms. I'm your host, Payman Ascari, and as is becoming routine, it's totally my fault that we started out late, so apologies for that. Has nothing to do with our guest, Mr. Andrew Skinner. Welcome on, sir.
Thank you, Payman. It's great to be here, and I appreciate you having me on the show. And as I was telling you before the show, I've watched your videos, and I would recommend anybody jump on YouTube and go to In Lay Terms. All the candidates you're showing, kind of in a more casual way, I think is great. So it's really glad to be here.
No, don't let me stop you. Keep going. You were saying some good things about me.
Yeah, you like me?
Yeah.
Well,
we got another 50 minutes. Go ahead.
I'm the candidate in Columbia, Kootenay, Southern Rockies. It's quite a mouthful. It's actually a new riding. It's been reformed. So is an incumbent, but really there's not an incumbent because it's a fresh new slate. So that's a positive thing. A little bit about myself. I've been in politics before. Believe it or not, and I know a lot of our members now, because of recent events, have the same story. I, in my younger days, was an NDPer, and I did a lot of advocacy for NDP for, trying to help people. But, as I progressed through that in the early 2000s, something was revealed to me, and I looked for another home. And I did look around the Conservative Party. I came in right at the time when there was the split was happening, the merger between the Alliance Reform and the Progressive Conservatives. And I've had the pleasure of working with some of those people that split off with the Conservative Party. I've just never been able to vote Conservative. And I have those values, but I just couldn't vote for the party. So the Honorable Sinclair Stevens, he's passed on now. I had the honor of working with him back in the early 2000s, and you get a lot of the juicy inside stuff. So it's experience that you can't pass on. And I see a same opportunity. We've seen some new candidates yesterday, and on the Adam Levine show. I don't know if you can see that. I want to give him a plug too. It was exciting. You got some really good candidates there, and some of them like just so well spoken, knowledgeable, and you got some average working people, and I think that's a great benefit. That and I don't want to use the term, but I noticed we did too. It's a very diverse group of people from all over Canada, all walks of life, and they all have the same goal, and it's very positive.
Yeah, on yesterday's relay that you're referring to, so you had all of these fantastic candidates, and then you
Yes.
had Eddie Cornell. Like he's just on another level. The guy who brought the EMA case.
Yeah, well, it just like even people. I watched your show yesterday too. The last 24 hours have been pretty exciting for a PPC person. Maxime Bernier has made his announcement. We're making ground. We're moving forward. We're getting support. But I watched you do your interview with Greg Wycliffe, and he's one of the first people I came across when I started looking into the PPC. I've been looking for a while. I know the party formed back in 2018. I have some mutual allies because I said I was involved in politics in Ontario. And it was actually the incident that the Conservative Party did to the People's Party that really opened my eyes. I seen that it's like that Trump effect where they're attacking somebody. And I've seen that before with people like David Orchard, Honorable Sinclair Stevens, Joe Huglin, and they the machine it's dirty. It's very dirty. And what I see in my experience doing the politics, I've heard this before from a lot of the candidates who have ran already. They're average Canadians, they have good values, and they come in to politics and they say, I didn't realize how naive I was. You think you know issues. And if you've ever seen the movie Shrek, I use this example about the onion having layers. Politics has layers. There's that top layer that we all see as Canadians and voters. We talk about immigration, the economy, all the issues we're supposed to talk about. Then you have the second layer of politics, which is the things they don't want to talk about, especially the Conservatives at this point, where there's these sustainable development goals, the Agenda 21, Agenda 2030 stuff. And that's like the second layer that a lot of people don't know about. I would say a vast majority of Canadians, let alone voters, don't really follow that. So they don't know really what's going on behind the scenes. And then there's that third layer of politics, which is this dirty politics that happens internally that, very few people know about. And as I said, when that happened back in 2021 election, I knew Maxine was the person I had to support. That was what I was looking for to fit the values of my conservative values. And I watched the PPs very closely, asked some questions to people I know involved and some of the founders. And I said, I think this is it. I've been very, I would say, inactive from politics because, as you've seen, I work for the BC government. And you live in Vancouver, right, Payman?
I did. I fled. I'm in Whistler right now.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Well, as you know, in BC, we have a very heavily leaning left faction, very, very left out here. So with my views, working for the BC government, being a unionized employee, in honesty, you have to be careful. It's that bad. We need change. We need change.
All right. Well, that was a lot in there. My first question for you, you said you used to support the NDP. Mm-hmm. I asked this question of every single former NDP supporter. What was it about the party that drew you to them? And what changed that kind of pushed you away from them?
Well, I think the NDP, not even think, they do. They put out this image that they're for the working class people. And I fell for it in the beginning. Who doesn't want to help people? Who doesn't want to, help the downtrodden and bring them up and make them, productive members of society? And I worked with Andrea Horvath, and I to this day tell her that she was the single factor that got me to leave the party. Jack Layton, back in my younger days, was an inspiration. He got me to be, I'd say, more of an advocate and an activist. And I started working with Andrea Horvath, like I said, and I had an issue that we were trying to solve. It was a government overreach. There it is, trying to reel in the government. And we were trying to get some accountability and oversight in one of the ministries. And Andrea would tell things to us to our face. And I felt something in me that there was a conflict because the NDP is a big union and some of the stuff was involving unions. And a bunch of the people, we had a group of about 10,000 people on Facebook, and we used to do rallies all over Ontario. We've actually even had some BC supporters back there. That was back in 2008-ish. And anyways, we decided to go to one of Andrea's union rallies. And what came out of her mouth, I knew right then that the NDP were liars and they were very two-faced. And I left almost immediately. And I did, like I said, I went and checked out. I've never checked the Liberals out. I just could never identify with them. So I did go check out some of the more conservative, like the federal party. I know Scott Reed. I worked with Randy Hillier when he was a member of parliament. And it was the two-facedness and realizing that they're pandering for votes. And when you get right behind that next layer of politics, as I said, they're not who they say they are. And again, didn't fit with my values anymore. So I left and looked for a new home. So
I have another question about why you would never vote for conservative, but I want to pick up on what you said about pandering. In the last 3, maybe 4 days, the Liberals have come out and they've started pressing on this issue of stopping a moratorium on immigration and dropping interprovincial trade. Like, to me, that's just pandering. And then I looked at Pierre Poilievre. One of his candidates came out in the last few days with a campaign against government facilitated monopolies or oligopolies. And I see that as them realizing they're losing ground to the PPC. So again, pandering. So if you left the NDP because they're pandering, and if I am correctly identifying that the Liberals and the Conservatives also pander, they all suck, right?
Yeah. Well, I said I've never been able to go with the Liberals ever. And I've experienced hardship like a lot of Canadians do throughout their lives. I've experienced hardship 3 times in my life. And every time the Liberal government has been in power. And I just can't do it. Even with our recent ones here with the COVID vaccine mandates, it did create hardship for a lot of people. And it's Liberals. So never could identify with them.
Well, what about the conservatives? Again, I asked this of every former NDP. What is it about the Conservative Party beyond what you just said that you would never vote for?
It's the way they do their politics. They're not honest. There's, like I said, there's layers to what's going on here. And we have Pierre out there, basically stealing the PPC party. But if you actually look at the voting record of some of these conservative candidates, it's not what's coming out of their mouth. For instance, just one issue is Pierre supports jailing parents who want to stop the state from transitioning their children. Red lights. That's not conservative. That's big government coming in and taking control of people's lives. And when you can't defend, who would defend their children better, the government or a parent? A caring parent would, hands down. And that's just, again, this is just repetitive of what I've seen from the conservatives since I started really getting involved in politics, and it just left a bad taste in my mouth. I've seen them take out good people or smear good people. Like I said, Sinclair Stevens, and whether you agree with all the policies or not, a very nice person, very genuine, willing to talk and debate. Very similar to Maxime, same sort of person, cares about Canada, very open, but just seeing the conservatives attack those people who I know personally it's been going on for almost 20 years that I know of, and I just couldn't check that box. And that's why I'm excited that Maxime did what he did. When he did his resignation speech, I couldn't believe we had a politician that was willing to say the things that needed to be said. That doesn't happen in politics. And it really made me start watching the PPC. And I feel bad in a way, Payman, because I kind of sat on the sidelines for a few years before I said, this is it. It was the 2020, the Project Cactus. I seen that tactic, and I immediately said the PPC is for me. That is the good party. Maxime's a good person. They attack the good people. And I think it just gets backed up by, his resignation speech, where he's basically told the country what is going on and what needs to be said. So, yeah, that's my thought on the conservatives.
Matt, sometimes, I've met him a few times, Max. We've interacted a bit, and the stuff that guy has put up with over the last 5-6 years.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could do it. You mentioned Operation Cactus. He's relentlessly being called a racist. He stood on principle and started what most of us would never be able to do, a new political party. And they're calling him a little child who didn't get his toys, so he went and he started his own party. These people are insane.
Yeah, well, they did the same thing, I said, back in 2006 with when the party split. I did, like I said, I went with Sinclair Stevens, and we formed what was called the Progressive Canadian Party. And we were trying to keep the PC party to get votes for again, it was to try to get some of these corrupt people out. And the way they attacked, and it was kind of the same tactic. And yeah. I know, Paul, I think everybody would agree that, politics is dirty. It's supposed to be. You take a few plugs at your opponent, but there's a certain, to me, a moral and values, Canadian values. When you are knowingly smearing people for things that are false, knowingly false, and you're creating agent provocateurs to get out there and pretend that they're people they're not. And then you have the Conservative Party pointing at the fake accounts and the fake people that they've created, saying, oh, look how bad these people are. I don't think any Canadian, and I don't think that a lot of Canadians know really what happened. And like I said, I don't think most Canadians would support something like that ever.
I've heard horror stories like Newfoundland. Apparently, that was a full-on takedown of the EDAs there.
Oh, okay. Unfamiliar with that one. So, no comment on it.
Oh, is that David Drover and a couple of other candidates, and someone came out and said that there's a white supremacist party, and every EDA just fell under. Some of them had infiltrators within the EDA.
Yeah, there you go. So there's what you're coming out of your conservative politics. And I said, going back to my NDP days, there is activists and, there's those kind of things going on there, which, I was very upfront when I did my advocacy. We started a little organization called Fighting for Families, and we were trying to get oversight for children in care in foster homes. There's a lot of things that happen to those kids. And, I met some foster kids, and I thought, we need to change this. We need someone to be able to look in. When the government takes someone's child, that's a great responsibility, and we need to hold the government accountable for just normal daily things, let alone what they do to your children if they're gonna take them. So we worked for several years on that. We went through many private members' bills, and in the end, it was successful. But it wasn't the NDP that did it, and that's because I had left. Yeah, believe it or not, it was actually the Progressive Conservative Party with Randy Hillier. He looked at the information we gave him. He did some research, and he said, yes, we need to change this. I'm going to help you. So, yeah, it was successful.
I have a question for you. I don't know if you're old enough to answer this. When I came in, I was just a little bit too young at the time to remember what happened with Reform and the Alliance. What exactly happened? Because people tell me that like the Reform Party was just this beautiful party. It was great. And then something happened and then everyone got corrupt.
Well, again, I think it was a lot of dirty politics. Now, all the ins and outs, it's been so long, I don't really remember, but we had people like Stockwell Day and stuff, of course, were involved. And there was a lot of promises made to some of the MPs and the supporters that were in that the Progressive Conservatives at the time. And, funny business with votes and things going missing. And it's almost, it's not quite as bad. The tactics weren't quite as bad as the Project Cactus. Like I that was full blown out. that tells me how threatened they were of Maxime. And again, the tactic is what brought me here. But yeah, it was back then I was just getting into politics at the time. So I came in right at this beautiful time to be, and I think it happens for a reason, right? Because, I might have been a conservative and blindly did, voted. And to be able to meet some of those people at that time and work closely with them, like every weekend we'd have meetings and talk, and just dirty pool, making promises behind the scenes, things with handshakes, and then reneging, and then telling the public a completely different story.
Maybe we should give a shout out to Warren Kinsella. I'll clip this out. How's it going, bro?
Well, yeah. Hello there, Warren Kinsella. That's another thing that I found very interesting is Warren Kinsella is a liberal strategist. And I thought, what are the conservatives doing hiring a liberal strategist? And, you're on X too. I follow you. I see your posts. And you see a lot of people posting that, the PPC is just liberals. They're going to help the liberals. And I'm thinking, well, you don't know really, because your party is hiring liberal strategists. So really, who's trying to do what here? Yeah,
I didn't know he was liberal.
Oh. Yeah, liberal strategist.
Speaking of strategists, what about Mark Carney? Guy comes out of nowhere. I understand he's the governor of Bank of Canada. It wasn't a household name. And then overnight, his messaging is perfect. Like compared to what Trudeau has been putting out the last 9 years, this is like gold. Where did the billionaires go to Perkins Coie and say, give us your best strategist, we're taking over this campaign?
Well, as some people know that these people are globalists. They work for international interests, not Canadian interests. They abandoned Canada almost 20 years ago, and that's all of them. Back in the Mulrooney days, and I wasn't really heavily involved in politics back then. I was fairly young, but the Paris Accord stuff came in, and shortly after that, we signed some agreements like the Agenda 21, a voluntary agreement, of course, but we signed on to it as a government. And back when I first ran, and again, I'm going back to Maxime. He's ahead of the curve. He's saying things years ago that are happening now, and he told everybody they were going to happen. Now, back when I ran in the early 2000s, I came across this Paris Accord, this internationalist stuff going on, globalism, we're calling it now. And I became alarmed. And when I did my candidacy back then, I started talking about these things. And yes, the public they weren't ready. They weren't ready to hear those things. And I think a lot of us suffer from normalcy bias. Like, we can't wrap our head around, as Canadians with values, that somebody would do those things, but they do. So I think that's what the PPC and Maxine are doing. They're showing this, and they're breaking through those barriers, those cognitive dissident type things. And it's beautiful to see. It's beautiful. It feels right to be here to me. And that, just the passion's there. It's what I encountered 20 years ago. And I'm glad to be on this side, fighting it with Maxine. It's a good thing.
I have a theory that in the next couple of weeks, things are just going to get really spicy because the Liberals have drifted to the right, and now the Conservatives are freaking out. They're stealing anything they can from us, even our more radical ideas. I wouldn't be surprised if they say we should pull out of the Paris Climate Accord.
Wouldn't that be beautiful? And, this again, this would not happen. We would not be even remotely here if Maxine hadn't have. I'm going to say it the way I see it. I think he risked everything to do that. And I think that takes a lot of integrity and a lot of courage and bravery. And that's what I look for in a leader. And when I seen the Freedom Convoy going on, and I know people have different views, and that's fine. You're allowed to have your opinions on stuff. But when I seen Maxine out there leading what was going on and interacting and being there, he was willing to, he got arrested for his beliefs. A leader leads from the front, not from the back. So, yeah.
There's another one that it's shameful the way that they attack Max. When Max got arrested for standing up for you and our charter rights, and they're like, yeah, but he was only in jail for 1 day and he paid the bail. He didn't even fight it. I'm like, how many leaders in the Conservative Party went to jail standing up for our rights the last 5 years? Count them out for me.
I do recall Pierre showed up for a little bit. He walked down the road there, and I don't remember the gentleman. He's a military guy that did the walk across Canada, and I apologize to him because that was a great thing he did. And, I know Pierre showed up, did a little bit of a walk with him, quickly went over to the truckers, passed out some Tim Hortons, and he was gone. That was it. It was a photo op. Maxine stayed there. He stayed there with the people. And I think that's what a leader needs to do. A leader needs to stand up, tell the truth, and kind of carve the way. And I say it like this. I've actually said it on X. A good leader should be able to, I said, lead from the front. And I have a lot of respect for a leader that's willing to take the slings and arrows for me. And I will stand there beside someone who's going to do that. And that could be my ex-military background. I know on your show last night, we had some military guys, and I think we're all on the same page. We're loyal to Canada. We were willing to risk our lives for Canadians and Canadian values. And again, good. I think the candidates coming in are very knowledgeable on what's going on, and they have a loyalty to the country that I don't think other politicians and candidates do. And it's obvious when you're signing international agreements to get rid of sovereignty and take away, our rights as Canadians. People who were willing to risk their lives for their countries, and people like Maxine, who stood out there. They're here for us, not the internationalists. I respect that.
No, absolutely. That's actually why I'm running. Like, I would never run for the Conservative Party. I just stay home, play video games, or I don't know, go on vacation. Why would I waste my time for something that's it's going to make life worse, let alone not make it better?
Well, I said, being in this before, Payman, when you do things like this, it doesn't just affect me. And you know this yourself. Like, you are the one standing up and having to have the thick skin, but it does the family, your whole family's involved. And, I thought about this a lot, and I actually asked my wife, and she's, you know what this is, what they do, and I just, and she supports me. And I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it again. If I have you and we know what we're in for and we're in agreement. And you're right, Payman. I'd rather go to work every day. I love my job. and come home, spend time with my family, play some video games with friends. But like you, I think we have to step up. More people need to step up. And I'm willing to, sacrifice a game night once in a while with my friends to do what needs to be done. And they know this too, and they're supportive of it. So, yeah.
No, I don't think in a few years we're going to look back with any regrets. I don't think we're going to say, "Oh man, we wasted our time. Why did we support the People's Party? They were actually globalists in disguise."
Well, I always say that too, is you actually regret the things you didn't do much more than the things you did do. So I think the choice is pretty obvious.
Yeah, we're probably on the right side of history. No issues here.
And I got to say, Payman, I know this is, so I noticed your name, and it's funny. Ascari, is that how it is? Payman Ascari?
Yep.
Where's your heritage from?
So I'm from Iran.
Okay.
And in Arabic, Ascari or Askar means soldier. So I'm going around and I've been telling people, I'm like, we're my family, we're proud heritage of soldiers, military guys, going back generations. And my dad pulled me aside. He's like, you do realize we misspelled the name when we came here. So the name is supposed to be spelled with a G and not a K. And it doesn't even mean anything. So.
Well, again, I don't know. I think you have an awesome name. When I even said to my wife, Payman Ascari. So what a great name. I'm Andrew Skinner. You're Payman Ascari. It just, I don't know. It's got a ring to it.
Yeah, it's a little bit difficult when I'm trying to get reservations. They're like, "What?" I'm like, "Just Peter. Just put it down as Peter."
Yeah. Well, that's again with watching some of the shows you guys have been doing, and seeing again. I think they stole the left and the radicals, the Marxists and the communists. They've stole the woke, I guess we'd call it. Sorry if you hear something. I'm by a highway. But they stole a lot of stuff from us. Like now to say diverse, it almost feels like a dirty word, but as Canadians, we didn't have issues like this before they started pushing this stuff. I think Canadian values it's just naturally inherent that we're very accepting, we're very nice people. And, look where we are now. When you start ramming stuff down people's throats, it causes problems. And I was just going to go back to, looking at some of the candidates that I've seen is, it is diverse. There's people from all over the place. Last night, I must say, I was very drawn with John Eby.
Ed, yeah.
Want to give John a shout out. Like you asked him that question about the racism, and he laughs. We all laugh because it's absolutely unbelievable that they're going to try to put that on the party and Maxine. I think the diversity in the party is amazing, and John was so knowledgeable and intelligent. And for someone who came from, I believe it was Nigeria, and just his education is like phenomenal and well spoken, and yeah, it was.
He's a sharp guy. Yeah. I did an interview with him. You should go watch that. Very sharp guy. He's going to be a great candidate. One other thing about diversity, when we came here in '89, like we went through Germany, and the Germans are very different than the Canadians. When we got here, I have a picture of these two Ottawa residents showing my mom around the city. This is like the first day we got there. Canadians are wonderful human beings. When Trudeau stood up and he said, the truckers are racist, sexist, homophobes, transphobes, I lost my mind. I was like, who the hell are you to say that? Because this country, it saved my family. That's why I drove to Ottawa, was because of that, actually.
Yeah, Payman. See, we are the same. All of us are cut from the same cloth. We're patriotic Canadians who love each other, no matter where you're from, what you believe. It was the same thing with me, and I'll tell the story. I was sitting on the couch with my wife, and we were watching television. And actually, we don't watch television very often. And I'm going to be respectful. Mr. Trudeau did his interview. And when he said that we were racist, misogynist, we didn't believe in science, and we were taking up space, my wife looked at me and she says, "Do you want me to pack you a suitcase?" I was gone the next day from BC all the way to Ottawa. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the same with me. Yeah.
As a government employee, if I were to ever say that myself, I would be under investigation for a standards of conduct violation, and rightfully so. And this is another thing where I see our leaders are held at a different standard, and it can't be that way. for him to call, I would say a fairly large portion of Canada racist, misogynist, people who don't believe in science and are taking up space. That is a red flag if I've ever seen a red flag. You are only steps away from, not getting medical care, what they were trying to push. You're not vaccinated, you don't get medical care. I think my libertarian views come out here where I'm very accepting of anybody. I've traveled the world, and I don't live in resorts when I go anywhere. I like to take a backpack, rent an apartment, and stay for longer because I'm saving money. And I talk to my neighbors using Google Translator, of course. But, that's us as Canadians. We're accepting people. I can remember back in the day when the peacekeepers in Canada, and again, I'm ex-military, we can have different views, but there was a lot of pride in peacekeeping. Canadians were known as the best peacekeepers in the world. And, when people traveled, they would put Canadian flags on their backpacks or on their luggage because everybody loves Canadians. And since Trudeau's been in, that reputation, it's definitely been tarnished. And, as someone who loves my country, yeah, it's hard to watch that happen. I was military, so it's hard to watch that happen. Watch a leader say that about people in the country. And I don't care who you are, where you come from, whether you're vaccinated or not. It's unacceptable. Unacceptable.
I remember there was a time, the sort of like the Florida man trope, where Canadians used to always make fun of Americans for being dumb, stupid hicks or whatever. Now, when I travel down to the US, they're saying the same thing about us. It's like, is it true the cops in Canada said you should leave your car keys next to the door so the thieves can steal it? I'm I'm actually American, I swear.
Yeah, this is where we are. This is where we are. Well, again, being totally truthful too. And this is something that I just see with Max, and I see with a lot of the people that are in the party. They're just very good people that sort of wear things on their sleeves. Like there's nothing, that you really don't see. But yeah. There's so many things. I just forgot what I was going to say.
There's a lot going on these days.
There is a lot happening.
I got a pointed question for you. Well, what did you do in the military?
I was an avionics technician. Basically, I said when I was younger, I'm originally from Ontario, a little community called Trenton, Ontario, big Air Force base there. My father was military, and we lived in Germany for a while back in the 78 to 82. I was just little, very little. But my father, it was different times back then too. He was in the Air Force, and he took me to, one of his friends was a pilot. And you would never have this happen nowadays. But they actually sat me in the 104, the F-104 Starfighter, and they fired up the engines. And I kid you not. I knew then, as a kid, maybe 7 or 8 years old, that I was going to be in aviation. So as I started to grow up, my father was into business, so I helped a lot with the businesses. And in my 20s, I wanted to, start my own family and do my own thing. And I said, I don't think I want to do business. I want to follow my dream, which is in aircraft and aviation. So I actually I went to Northern Alberta Institute of Technology, Edmonton. And this is the thing where I've lived in Alberta. I've lived all over the country. And I think I have an understanding about equalization and all the issues that, normal people are facing. But I graduated from NAIT. I was honors. And I went to work for Spar Aerospace. And I don't know if you heard, they made the Canadian space arm. So I went and worked for them.
Right, yeah.
My goal was to actually work for the Canadian Space Agency. That was my goal. So I went and I got into Spar, and I worked there for a few years. And just as I was ready to make a transition to a new company, I wanted to go back to Ontario, and 9/11 hit. And it was one of those things at the time. I look back and, I don't regret doing it because it's kind of a family thing too. And, you learn discipline and all that in the military. But I did 3 years in the military as an avionics technician. And it was one of those things where I loved it. I don't regret it at all, but it was time to do something else. I'm sort of a freedom oriented, individual freedom, personal responsibility, respect and fairness. And those are my principles. And I thought, I want to go do something else. I don't want to be in the military. And that's actually when something else happened, and I got into politics. Things happen for a reason. So yeah, it's been interesting ride.
That's pretty cool. I got a question though. Where in Germany did you live?
Well, when we first got there, we lived in a little town called Iffezheim. I think I'm saying that right. Iffezheim, German community. My best friend lived downstairs. Was a German kid, and we couldn't understand each other. But when kids play, you don't need to understand each other. So it worked out well. And we moved to a little community called Hugelsheim, and then we moved into Baden-Baden, CFB Baden-Baden, into the PMQs for the military. So we were living right sort of in the base. Yeah, but Baden-Baden.
Sorry, I was in Wolfhagen and then Hamburg, and I also spent a month in Bonn, the former capital.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I said when we were there, of course, we traveled a lot. And again, I think travel sort of rounds somebody out. I think you become a better person. You have more understanding of how the world works when you travel. So, yeah. But yeah, we traveled all over Europe. A beautiful country, too. Beautiful country. Some of the best food I've eaten is in Germany when you're eating the schnitzels. Yeah, good stuff. How long were you in Germany?
I was there in 80, I think like 87 to 88, 89 we were there. And then I went back for a study abroad program in 2002 or something.
Okay.
I was going to say the most authentic German food I ever had was actually not in Germany. It was in Estonia.
Yeah. Well, the spatzel and mushroom gravy. Oh, delicious. We have a little place in the town here I'm in, and they serve European food. There's a little, Kimberley's not far either, and it's very European. A lot of European immigrants came. And so you got the German restaurants, and oh yeah, it's beautiful. There's a little place out there called the Old Barn House that they actually disassembled in Europe and brought over here and set up in Kimberley. And they have this thing called the Bavarian Feast. And yeah, German food, yeah, Spatzel and Jaeger schnitzels and Wiener schnitzels.
What do you call the fancy Munich? I don't want to try to pronounce it. That Lederhosen, what is it called? Is that what it's called? With the ethnic clothes they wear in Munich?
Yeah, with the hats. And well, that's another thing. You have Oktoberfest there. And I can remember as a child, I was young, so I couldn't do all the things, but my parents would go to these Oktoberfest and you'd eat bratwurst. Yeah, I've also been all over Southeast Asia too. I traveled all over Southeast Asia. We went to, and again, this is not expensive travel. You can go stay in a resort for 2 weeks by a pool with a bunch of other, people usually that are from your country, and cost you thousands of dollars. You can take that same money, go rent a local apartment, and you can stay there for 2-3 times as long. And your neighbor is a Thai person or a Cambodian or Vietnamese, and it's great. And people, I always, very friendly person when I'm out traveling, and you meet these people, and they're so nice. Like they'll take you into their homes, they'll feed you, and you're just some foreign guy that showed up, and you live next door, and you really can't talk, but you use their Google Translator, and we started out in Phuket, Thailand. And we basically local transportation, taking buses. We went up to Bangkok. I've been to Bangkok 5 times, going back and forth, traveling through Thailand. And yeah, we use buses, and well, in Mexico they call them colectivos, just little transportation for the local people.
The tuk-tuks.
I was going to say the tuk-tuks. You can go anywhere in town for $2 Canadian. Like unbelievable. And the food is delicious and very inexpensive, and just nice people. But I still talk to some of these people. I have a friend in Cambodia who wants me to come out and help him work in his rice field. And I said, absolutely. The next opportunity I get, I'm going to come and we're going to go work in your rice field.
Just a drunk Canadian out there destroying the rice paddies.
That's what I said. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to do it.
You show up with your hockey stick.
Yeah. But yeah, his name's Pem. He's a good guy. He was actually our tuk-tuk driver, and that's how I met him. And he was with us the whole month. We come out one day from a hotel we were staying in back in an alley, And, he was there waiting for us at 9 a.m. He had coconuts for us, and he wouldn't even charge us for some of the drives. And, as someone who I know this is his living, I was just, no, I'm going to, no, I want to take you. He wanted to take us out to his family farm to meet his parents. Like those experiences they're priceless. In Vietnam, I was down a little alley, and this old lady came out, and again, no English. I don't speak Vietnamese. And, we started talking through the translator, and the next thing you know, we're taking watermelon to our house. She's giving us some of her food, and we're sitting in this square that maybe is about 12 by 12. And she's obviously on a pension. And yeah, it's just unbelievable that you can sit there and have an interaction with somebody, and you don't speak the language. They don't speak your language. You use the Google translator a little bit, and yeah, it's great.
I have one. I love the liberty of Southeast Asia. I was in Thailand. Take the scooter into the forest. There's a bar in the middle of the forest, and I'm like drinking beer. There's no RCMP coming to do a breathalyzer. And I told the guy, I'm like, I'm running low on gas. Is there a gas station? The bartender just goes in the back, brings 2 beer bottles full of gasoline.
Gas.
Yeah, he fills up my tuk-tuk or my scooter, and it was cheaper than it would have been at the gas station.
Yeah. Well, it is. Beautiful people everywhere. And I said, I think if you're a nice person, and said, being Canadian. I think people, that thing is still there. That Canadians are good, nice people. We have good values. And like I said, with Trudeau, we were talking earlier, I see that being tarnished. I see it leaving a little bit. So it's difficult. I was going to say too, and I want to say this because again, in full disclosure, when Donald Trump first came onto the scenes, he used to do his apprentice stuff. My wife loves him. She loves him. And, I watched a season of The Apprentice, and I'm, he's a little bit arrogant. I don't really like the guy. Well, and it was one of those moments, Payman, when he announced he was going to run for president. When I watched how he got attacked, it's the same thing as Maxime.
Yeah.
I watched the attacks. I watched that strategy, and I started paying more attention. And I would say within a year of his first presidency, I was just, no. This guy has values that they're trying to get rid of. And I started getting a little jealous at that point that we didn't have someone like that here. And I was just, wouldn't it be great to have a leader that cared about Canadians? And yes, we have Maxime now. So it's a good thing.
I was the same. I had Trump derangement syndrome. I always hated Trump, even before he ran.
Yeah.
And then I had Trump derangement syndrome. And then, the media kept attacking him. So I finally woke up. From 2020 until, let's say 2023, I was obsessed with U.S. news. And I was hanging on to everything Donald Trump said and everything that was in U.S. media. And then at one point, I'm like, I kind of just looked back and I looked at Canada. I'm like, wait a minute, we got problems here too. So I completely shifted over to now. I'm worried, more focused on Canadian media.
Yeah. Well, that's we have a lot in similar. I see that with a lot of the candidates and people involved with PPC. They've had these same experiences, which, again, I don't think the average Canadian really knows what's going on. But when I see a politician getting attacked, of course, politicians get attacked all the time, but it's the tactic, the vigor, the amount from all angles. This is, Marxist rules for radical stuff. So as soon as I see that, I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued, and I watch to see what's going on. And we're at a point now. And again, in full disclosure, I'll come home and my wife will be watching videos, and Donald Trump's doing a speech, and she's just no, give me 20 minutes, and I'm just. That's you're my wife. I want to give you a hug, and an hour later, I'm just, can you come back over here now? But yeah, Donald Trump I've definitely changed my opinion of him, and I'm not embarrassed to say that. It's unfortunate that he's the American president that is creating. Well, the art of the deal comes to mind when he does these things. But I'm glad we have Maxine, and I think that would be a great leader to have with Trump, because there isn't, he's still, Maxine obviously loves Canadians in Canada, but it's a different approach. It's a more Canadian approach to me. It's not screaming and yelling and hating people. It's trying to find our common ground and making something that everybody benefits from. And I think Maxine can do that. Just look at the platform. I think it'll happen. Many of the issues that Trump has are, in my opinion, he has every right to do that. The borders are not secure. We have undocumented illegal immigrants in the country. And again, you see you being an immigrant and John, there's nothing wrong with immigrants. That's a good thing to bring in merit-based immigration, people who want to be here, who are leaving their country to be a Canadian and to make a better life. But, that we don't even know the numbers. It's somewhere between 50 to 500,000. Like fentanyl. In BC, I live about an hour from the border, and there's big drug busts going on. You probably heard this too in BC. Record drug busts of fentanyl, and we have people dying in the streets. There's homeless everywhere. I think Trump makes a good point, and we need to clean that up immediately. Secure the border, get rid of the drugs. I live in a small community, and when COVID hit, you would see the odd homeless person here. It's a small community. And now my wife and I, we were going for a walk. We do an evening walk. And we heard some running behind us, and turn around, and there's some lady telling us she's going to kill us, screaming she's going to stab me. And this has gone too far. This is a little community, and we have homeless and drug addicts all over. They're living in tents, even in the winter. And I want to say this, I don't hold them responsible. I hold the government responsible. I hold the Liberals and the BC NDP with their lax. It's almost like they're promoting the drugs. It makes you wonder who's benefiting from all this.
Okay, let's switch over and talking about drugs. I talked to I did a live stream yesterday on this as well. Where do I start? Vancouver is a war zone. I used to live there 2019 when the last year I was there. That's when I noticed like the homelessness problem was it got kicked into like a different gear. 5 a.m. when I go. Sorry?
I would say, yeah, you're right. Something happened. Something's changed.
Well, like at 5 a.m. when I was going to work, there were people drinking on the street, the homeless people. Mm-hmm. And if you go to Victoria on Vancouver Island, they got a massive tent city there as well. And the NDP solution of safe supply, which is encouraging people to do drugs, I don't know how did they manage to sell that?
As you and I know, living in BC, Canada has again, I don't want to use the word, it almost feels dirty because they've stole it, just like the rainbow. They've stole all these things from us. But, it's a very diverse country. Each province has its own little thing. And as you know, BC it's had a lot of left governments, and there's a lot of that lefty type ideology. And it's not about, as you know, it's not about not wanting to help people. Obviously, you want to help people. But I don't think giving people who have mental health problems, who have other problems in their lives, free drugs is solving the problem. It's obvious it's not solving the problem. Look around. You mentioned the homeless cities, the tent cities. Like they're all over the province. I've traveled the province. Kelowna has them. Like every major center has a tent city. The town I live in has about 15,000 people, pretty spread out. We have a tent city here. Like it's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it was
I
never
do want
this
to
bad.
add one thing. When I said I work for the BC government, so I do travel a little bit. And the first time I was out in Vancouver, one of the first things I said to my coworker, I said, hey, do you know about this East Hastings? And he's, oh, you don't want to go there. You don't want to go. I said, well, I like to see. I want to see with my own eyes to believe. And this is before COVID. And we drove down East Hastings. And I was speechless.
It's a war zone. Yeah.
You've got sleeping bags, 10 over here with a group of people all sleeping. There's groups of people obviously doing drugs and high. And the last, I haven't been there for a few years. And I was told it's worse. It's worse than when you were here. And I'm just, how can it get any worse? It is worse. And you would probably know better than me but yeah, East Hastings. I know YouTubers do videos down there, and it's just not a good look. It's not a good look.
It's bad. It's infinitely worse than you think. Like, so many times I've walked around the parking lots there and you see somebody shooting heroin into his like toes. I've seen people passed out naked there. People doing drugs in the middle of the street, everybody walking into the street. They had to make it a 30-kilometer zone because it's so dangerous. I did a program with the police, the Vancouver Police Department, and they showed me videos regularly. There's people stabbing each other because of drug wars.
Yeah,
It's really bad. And if you ever walk there, it's just reeks of urine.
Yeah. It's a sad situation we're in. The last 9 years of the federal Liberals have really intensified that. And out here in British Columbia, we have our own issues, as you know, with the BC NDP promoting even harder these types of things. One of the things I said, both you and I know about the Paris Accord. We know that there's globalists. We know Stephen Harper has signed the agreements too. It's it's almost if you've read a little bit of literature, like a few people have, like the Rules for Radicals, Machiavellian stuff. How to destroy a country. It's happening. It really is happening. I think when Trudeau came in, he pushed. At that point, like I said, when I came in 2000, early 2000s, this stuff I was a little ahead of my time talking about globalism and Agenda 21. And I remember back then, I didn't know. And I said, well, I'm hearing that they want to bring in a carbon tax. Like they want to charge carbon. They want to, reduce meat consumption. And I wasn't really sure at that point. This is almost 20 years ago. And, how are they going to do that? How are they going to stop Albertans from eating beef? And I said, I don't know. That's what I'm hearing. And I went in with this. I didn't believe, I don't think, in the beginning. It was this open, I was asking questions. And I think, the Socratic method of asking questions is a very powerful tool because you learn without being.
It's the most powerful way to break through the left.
Yeah. Asking questions. And this is what I was doing 20 years ago is, how are they going to, they got carbon tax? Like they were going to promote LGBTQ stuff. And again, I've my wife too, and we've had gay and lesbian friends. And again, we don't care. But when you get to the point where now we're having, men wanting to go into little girls' bathrooms and children being, as we talked earlier, being taken away from their parents. I look back now at this stuff that I was hearing 20 years ago. We have a carbon tax. We're being pushed to reduce the meat. The LGBTQ agenda is being promoted with the DEI behind it. At this point, you couldn't convince me that it wasn't true. You'd have to pull my leg off before I give. It's 100% happening. And it's amazing to watch that 20 years ago, hearing about it, not really believing it, asking questions about it. And then you fast forward to this point and it's, it's definitely happening. And I hope we can do something to stop it or we're going to lose the country. And that's not fear tactics. That's the reality. Trudeau, the post-nationalist state, we have no identity. And that's ridiculous.
The last 4 or 5 years now, in the beginning, I tried unleashing, the truth tour on people when I was talking to them, Agenda 2030, climate change, carbon tax. I quickly realized that doesn't work. What works now is if you can figure out a symptom of that and tie it back. So if you go on a camping trip with these guys and the price of gas is really high and you could always say, well, why is it that the government is pressuring us not to leave our community through all these carbon taxes and gasoline taxes, which is what it is. Like the cost of gas is so high that I question now whether I should drive into the city.
I do a lot of walking myself. I have a pickup truck and, it sucks the gas. And, I think right now here we're at $1.60 a liter. And it's funny because, we were at $1.79 not too long ago. And, they do this stuff too. It drops down 10 cents and you're just, oh, look, that's great. I'm going to go fill up. But you're still paying $1.60 for the gas. It's ridiculous. I can remember living in Alberta, and I know there's inflation, but years ago, and we paid 35 cents a liter for gas. And I was in my 20s at that time, mid 20s. Now even, I said, I don't live far from Alberta. I went to the Edmonton EDA. That's where I met Max there last month. Yeah, I drove all the way there. I wanted to meet him. I wanted to meet people in the party. It's exciting. And usually when you cross into Alberta, the gas will drop about 20 cents. And I found it very interesting that last month when we drove over, the price was not cheaper. It was on par. And I'm just, what's going on here? Why? So, yeah, even the Alberta gas is not cheap like it used to be anymore. And it's not even, like I said, it's almost the same price as here. So there used to be a big difference just before COVID even. It's the agenda.
Well, yeah, but this is one of those things you need like a realignment, a shift in the citizenry to say, like, draw a line in the sand. This is energy. We need this to survive. Energy it's a sovereign individual issue. Government, get the hell out of here. If you dare do this, we will throw you in jail. Like, the government shouldn't be taxing our source of energy.
Yeah, well, and you think that energy, and it affects everything in our lives, from the food we eat to the houses we buy to everything. Everything is connected to the price of energy. And I think Canada has, I'm not sure, and the third or fourth largest energy oil reserves in the world. I think it's 3 or 4. And we have a different type of oil here from the oil sands, but there's just no reason why we shouldn't be getting those resources and making it more affordable for Canadians. They should be benefiting from that as a whole. You mentioned something there, and I want to bring up, I don't know if you know this, but you probably did see it. It was a couple of days ago, the CUPE leadership, the CUPE union.
God, what did they do now?
They want to nationalize industry. Like, yeah.
No, I understand it. I mean, when you destroy your country for 9 years, you erode your bargaining position, and then the superpowers south of your border comes in and slaps 25% tariffs, and industry starts fleeing your country. It's logical. They're spending money, and the tax base is going away. They have to nationalize.
Well, that kind of goes back to that point where I was talking about the stuff I learned 20 years ago that you see happening, and you're wondering, it's being done on purpose to create that hardship, to create the environment where Canadians who really don't know, and again, good people, they don't know what's going on, and they start to think in this, in times of crisis and hardship, you look for a savior, and I think it's by design.
Yeah, I mean, it's either by design or the incentives are there. Take, for example, the whole drug issues that we have right now, right? So the government of the United States is pressuring Canada to look into that more. Part of that is money laundering through the casinos here. I went to wire money to the US this morning. They wanted 22 signatures or initials from me. 22 on one wire. We counted it.
Wow.
The government doesn't care. 22 initials instead of 10 means they got to hire another person.
Well, yeah, it creates big government. And then again, we have another problem that about payment is when you have a bunch of people relying on government, whether it's a worker or someone who's getting assistance. That's like it's like the daddy state, the mama state. They rely on that. And when you say we need to make changes, it's they're resistant because they're scared it's going to affect them.
You're cutting the umbilical cord.
Yeah, you're taking away from them, and I'm kind of going off here. Like, we know this Dodge thing happened in the U.S. Now I think every Canadian knows there's corruption and waste, but I don't think it's normalcy bias. And now that Trump and Elon have exposed that, you've seen it's reflected up here now. We're looking at global affairs. We're seeing that we're spending, what is it, 45 million or 25 million for condoms in some other country, and we're promoting drag queen shows over here. again, love Trump or hate him, I think is irrelevant. I think overall what he's done is exposed this money laundering, this corruption, this waste, these international organizations. And up here in Canada, I refer to them as the ABCs, the agencies, boards, commissions, tribunals, and societies. And, big government wants more of these, to put more employees in there, to create more regulation. It stifles the economy. But you create a population of people who are reliant on the government, whether they're working or not working. It's a problem. That's socialism.
Yeah, I mean, you and I were of a like mind, but that bureaucracy, the artificial creation of jobs, that only works when you have a tax base. And we're seeing people leaving Canada.
Absolutely.
So you're talking about QP nationalizing. If you don't have that tax base, you basically have to nationalize. You get plantations, people get food stamps, one corporation manages the farms. That's the only way.
That's exactly what happens. And again, if you study a bit of history, what the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And again, going back to my fundamental beliefs of the party, it's up to it's individual freedom. It's personal responsibility. And
this is my friend David. He's an anarchist. It's like, oh, stop. The government is good for you. The bigger, the better. That's how it works.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is. It's it's almost a cliche when you say, I'm a proud Canadian, I'm a patriot and all that. But when that freedom convoy happened, again, love it or hate it, it really showed us something. And, it reinstilled pride in me to be a Canadian. It was such a good feeling. And when I drove from here, I actually followed the convoy. I was behind them, and I was staying in motels on the way. And it was unbelievable that I would, somebody be checking in and they're just, oh yeah, I'm going to Ottawa too. And I said, oh, you're going to Ottawa? Oh yeah. And these were people from all walks of life, like all walks of life. I remember being in this one place in Northern Ontario, and there was this native guy who was worked up in Alberta, Northern Alberta, in the oil fields. And he's going to the Freedom Convoy. And I'm just, this is beautiful. This is, Canadians standing up, trying to put a stop to it. And then they trampled everybody with horses.
That's bad.
Yeah, it's a bad spot.
It was a sense of camaraderie. Like the things I saw on the way there, I saw some guy in the freezing cold in like Saskatchewan or Manitoba, just outside playing a guitar on the side of the highway, just cheering on the people driving electric guitar. The best sign I saw was in Ontario. It said, "Drive some sense into Ottawa."
Yeah, well, some of those videos that came out, and you'd see the overpasses full of people, like thousands of people, Canadian flags. It was. I think it really showed our government that what Canadians can do. I recently did a poll on my X, and I went online and did some research. What are Canadian values? I want to know what does the internet, what are they saying are Canadian values? And I basically compiled it down, and we have like freedom, equality. What was it? Freedom, equality. There was the charter. There was something else there too. And I was curious, and I said, out of those four, what do you think is the most important Canadian value? And I would have agree with the four selections as being pretty equal. I would have thought they would be pretty equal. And the poll, after they come back, it was overwhelming. People now think freedom is the number one Canadian value. I think that tells us a lot. People they're crying for freedom. They know something's wrong, and they want individual freedom and personal responsibility. Treat everybody with fairness and respect.
I want to bring something up to show you. I did a poll of myself. Gotta figure this out. Hey,
yeah, there's lots of polls on X. I think we're getting poll exhaustion.
This is my my own personal one. I did. This is these initials at the top are the candidates that I talk to. So I do interviews with candidates. I take the transcript, I feed it to ChatGPT, and I say, give me the top 10 issues in order. and government overreach was number one for the candidates. Vaccine mandates. I know people want this to go away, but that was number two. Corruption in politics. So the top three are some variation of too big government.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Or
Payman, as I said
tyranny.
earlier, is I've experienced hardship a few times in my life, and it's always been government overreach. And what I've also noticed is all that time, like every time that happens, they want you to shut up. They want you to take your licking, to take your punishment, whatever, rather it was justified or not, and just to shut up and go away. And I've never been able to do that. What's right is right, and what's wrong is wrong. And the government overreach I've experienced every time has been, in the end, it was corrected and someone was held to account. I really don't want to say too much, but it gives me hope that as Canadians, you have to stand up, and it's not about violent protest or revolution. It's about standing up peacefully as Canadians and just saying we've had enough. And just like I did, I've had enough, and I'm going to find like-minded people, and I'm going to start rallying. I don't even call them protests. I call them rallies, because you're rallying. It's positive. You want positive change. Protest to me is negative. But every time, and I'm hoping this time, I know you said a lot of people want that to go away, but what happened? And I'm sure people who pushed vaccine mandates and I believe trampled people's rights, I'm sure they do want it to go away. But unfortunately for them, Payman, that is the third time I experienced hardship in my life, and I won't quit. It's going to be corrected. So
Andrew Skinner's on the job.
I haven't failed yet, and I know it sounds very arrogant and stuff, but yeah, the first time something happened in Alberta and someone tried to create hardship in my life, I had a young family at the time, so it was important that I succeeded. And it worked out well. And that person ended up going to prison, believe it or not. It was a minister. Yeah, he was actually a director in the ministry. He actually went to prison he got a 2-year sentence, got out on good behavior, but they deported him back to England right away. Yeah.
Oh, really? Happy
He
ending. Finally, deportations.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he got charged and convicted of fraud and embezzlement. Again, taxpayer money, right? And that just shows you how long it's been going on and how prominent it is. The second time was in Ontario. I already told you, and it was the same thing. We fought for 4 years, and that's what my wife says. Maybe I'm not a smart guy, maybe I don't know all the things, but I'm persistent and I stick to my values. It took us 4 years, and we, on our personal thing, we won all the 3 things that were happening, and it took about another 4 years, and the government changed the laws. Like change can happen. You just have to get the right people to get up there and not back down. And it's like you said, Maxine there, a thick skin. I think to do this, you have to have a thick skin. And it's easier when you know you're doing the right thing and you believe in what you're doing. It's the white noise just goes behind you and you just move forward.
Yeah, I think Max is singularly capable of handling it in a way that definitely none of the other politicians can do, but I couldn't do.
Well, like I think we hit on it there is, we know what transpired in the beginning, and to see him still doing this and still have a positive outlook, and it tells me he's got a vision, and he's smiling all the time. He interacts with the people. I remember seeing this. I put this on X, and it was funny because I got a reaction from the Conservative Party right after that. I don't see any of these other politicians responding to any of their comments. And, I know you and I both know you get trolled and stuff too, but there's people asking questions and, they're not responding. And I said, actually Maxine reposted it for me, but I said, Max is the only politician that I see that interacts with the people. He reposts their posts, and right after that, I seen a few, I think Larry, Brooke.
Larry Brock, you mean, of the Conservatives?
Yes, Larry Brock. I noticed a couple of them, and he was one, actually started replying for about a few days. And then I think they were told, don't, because you're
don't do it. Yeah.
I think they were trying to keep up with Maxine. He was interacting with the people. And they don't do that. And it's important. I think it's important. It tells people that he is looking, he's watching what you're saying. The other politicians aren't doing that. How many times have you send you're trying to solve an issue in the government. And this is a whole, because the bureaucracy is so big. And you send an email to your local representative, you get this auto reply, and maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks later, you might get another email saying, "Oh, we can't help you," or you have to go to this other bureaucracy that we set up, and you're running around for hours of your time. Nothing's getting solved. You're going from one bureaucrat to the next bureaucrat. Then when you go back to the first guy and you're going, "Listen, this is not working." Well, we have a system. You have to follow the system. And to me, I've said for years, they want you to give up. They just want you to give up. They want to create such a big bureaucracy that you quit trying. I refuse to do that. Obviously, Maxine does too. So it's a good pairing.
I wanted to add one thing about Max. He wears his values on his sleeve. So if you follow his social media content, everything is long format. I know in marketing, you're supposed to use like a slogan or one sentence, but he puts out these long posts, they're detailed, and he can defend his position. Mm-hmm. You look at Pierre Poilievre, like if you take everything Max has put out in a day, it's more than what Pierre's put out in the last 3 years, because he just hides behind a marketing slogan.
And this is it too. I see this, and a lot of politicians do this. Pandering Pierre, I think, does it more than anybody. And I do believe the pandering is coming back to haunt him. Again, we'll go back to politics when we're talking. Yeah, there's factions across the country, and this is what Pierre has been trying. And again, it's politics. He's trying to maneuver between all these factions, trying to get their votes, pandering to them. But there comes a point, this is the internet, and you can pull up stuff that he said that he's now saying the opposite. And, just one thing, with the tariffs, he decided to go with the globalist. And, he lost that Trump faction that he was holding on to. The separatist factions, these are all the different factions. You have Western separatists, you have the Quebec separatists. I know we talk freely about this stuff. This is what we should be talking about. And these good, bad, doesn't matter. This is the reality. And back to pandering Pierre, I think that he's pandered so much that some of these factions are starting to realize this guy he doesn't stand on values that he's telling us. He's stabbing us in the back. He wants our vote. And this goes back to, again, with Maxine and some of the things he said. He hasn't changed. He hasn't changed any of those things. He's been saying the same thing since he formed the party. So, there's no pandering. This is what we're going to do. And if you look at the platform, and I was amazed, like I read it like a few years ago, and I was just, wow. And again, you're watching, but the things with equalization, and I've heard people say, "Oh, Maxine's from Quebec. He's going to do what's favorable for Quebec." Just, where have you been? It's not about doing, favorable or not favorable. He's addressing an important issue, which is, the dairy and egg cartels and the equalization payments. Nobody's willing to do that. Pierre won't even touch it.
Have you run into these conservative party supporters that try to defend the dairy cartel? I almost feel bad for them. It's like defending Joe Biden at his worst. It's impossible.
Yeah, well, when you're going out paying $10 for a 4-liter jug of milk, my wife does the groceries, so I don't really know, but it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous what the prices on that is. And, I know Trump has a problem with this. So it's just amazing to see a politician, and I say it over and over again, that's willing to talk about those things and not try to hide them or pander to the group behind the scenes like Andrea Horvath, and then tell you to your face, "Oh no, we're going to do this," and then go to the cartel or the union and say, "Oh, we're going to do this. Don't tell anybody." It's great to see a politician. I don't want to say too much about certain things because, but very rarely in my life have I seen a politician that I could say I trust. Maxine has definitely built a lot of trust, and I think inherently not a very trusting person. I don't trust the government, and it's not that it's some crazy thing. It's just there's too much power in what's going on with DEI and the things I've experienced. It's just to be very wary of the government. And I'm not going to lie, if I deal with a government official, and it's not police, I don't have a problem with police. It's the bureaucrats. I literally record almost every conversation I have with these people. And it's amazing how many times that saved my character, because, they'll screw up or give you a lie, and you'll say to their boss, well, I didn't say that, but he's being ignorant. He's being aggressive. He told me this. And you pull out the tape. It's amazing. It solves all those problems. It's amazing that I'm going through something right now where someone has said they screwed up, and now I got to be the bad guy. And there's a tape. What do you do?
There's no more trust anymore. It's like yesterday, again, I was at the bank, and the girl behind the teller, completely clueless. And I had to like constantly apologize to her. I'm like, listen, I'm not trying to give you a hard time. I'm just trying to understand. You clearly don't speak English that well. Like I don't care if you were born here. Your English skills are horrible. Just tell me, did you or did you not initiate the action? That's all I want to know.
Yeah. Well, that's similar with me. And I even, we're all humans. We all make mistakes. And with this last issue, there was a few things that were done wrong. And I said, why can't you people just admit you made a mistake? Like that goes a long way with me. But instead of saying, you know what, Andrew, we're sorry. Absolutely. It was our fault. I think most people would say, no problem. But when you try to cover up the mistake by saying, oh yes, well, he did this and this and this. And, that's the world we're living in, though. Everybody's a victim. It's the DEI. I've made a mistake. I'm not, I'm a little bit incompetent for whatever reason, new, or just don't care anymore. And I see the big problem in the government with the bureaucracy. These people are very unaccountable, and they don't care about you, and they screw up, and they're just, what are you going to do? You did this to me. Now prove you didn't. That's why I tape. You're not going to get me like that.
Got your little clandestine tape recorder. The one with
you're allowed.
Tape.
In Canada, thankfully under Part 5 of the Criminal Code, under invasion of privacy, it's one-party consent in Canada, and the only person that needs to know is you. So to put a recorder in your pocket, and you don't go out and try to set people up. That's not what it's about. But if something happens, and it's good to have that. It's less stress in your life when you can just say, listen, there's a tape. Talk to me, think about it, and get back to me. So
Andrew, that's exactly why we're recording this live stream right now. So you can't lie about this tomorrow to Max. Yeah.
Well, this goes back to another thing where these same people, if they were recording you, they'd say, if you got nothing to hide, what would you care for? Like, why would you care for a recording? And it's funny when you turn that back around and these same people and say, well, listen, you got nothing to hide. Well, why would you care if I'm recording? Oh, but I have rights. I have this. And no.
Yeah, now you have rights. What about when you froze my bank account?
Yes, exactly. It's interesting times we're living in. And I it's exciting. It's exciting.
Andrew, we've passed the 1 hour mark.
I know.
Let's, in wrapping it up, tell the audience, where can they follow you?
Well, I'm on Twitter, obviously, and I believe my handle on there is Andrew Skinner 37, I believe. But you can also go to the PPC website and just look up your candidates. Like I said, I'm in Columbia, Kootenay, Southern Rockies. So if you type in Kootenay, you'll get some people, and you'll see me, Andrew Skinner. And you can send me emails through the PPC website. I don't do DMs too much, but if you're pleasant and I'll respond. But I don't like the DMs. I'd rather you do through email or publicly on my Twitter page.
And donations, I guess they can do through the PPC website.
Yes, and that's something we're getting into now. Is in my own area doing some stuff and just kind of learning in different ways people can do stuff. I said I've done this before, and it was a little bit different. I like the way we do it here, though. I do, trying to keep things more to the actual candidate and the people that are supporting them. I think it's a great idea because people are more willing to help you out when they know, hey, if I donate some money or if I do this, it's coming right back to help this. It's not going to, Ottawa or another riding in a different province.
City of London.
Yeah.
So this David guy, you're breaking my back. We just said no DMs. So David just sent you a DM. He wants you on his podcast. So if you want to go on there, just to reply to him. He's a good guy. I was on there. I'll be on his show on Sunday as well. He's a good free thinker.
Perfect. Yeah. And well, again, I just want to say to you, thanks for having me on. Payman, I've been watching your stuff here for a little bit, and I want to meet you, and so it was great to be able to talk. This is the first time we've actually ever talked. Maybe I'm old school. I don't know. I like to meet people in person. I like to shake a hand, and so you know, you don't live that far from me, so we're gonna have to meet up one day.
I'll do a road trip. I'll bring my 2 puppies with me.
All right, sounds good. It was a pleasure to be here. I just enjoyed doing it.
Well, Andrew, thank you very much for coming on, and we'll stay in touch.
Perfect. Thank you, and thank you everybody that's watching. It's PPC. Let's go. Vote PPC.
You heard the man. Vote PPC. Take care, guys. Bye, Andrew.